What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out this episode of the podcast. I have John Noel from Level 10 Coaching. He's a online fitness coach who started out doing, natural bodybuilding, if you're familiar with that, and has now started what I think is a really awesome Instagram page that does a really good blend of providing like no BS approach to fitness and also touching on the uh, the mindset aspect of it, and that like we aren't our results aren't tied to our self-worth. So I'm super stoked to talk about that. Dude, I do. I love that about your page. That's what like I've been following you for a little while now. I don't know if it might be a year or so. And somebody suggested your page. It might have been, I could be wrong. It might have been Annie Miller, if you're familiar with Annie Miller.
hmm Yep, we're
Um,
colleagues on the gram, if you will.
okay, this probably was her then, because I think I remember her posting like a post where it was like, hey, here's like a bunch of people that I suggest you follow if you like my stuff. And you popped up. And my wife's a big Annie Miller fan. And I me too. But then you
Who
popped
isn't,
up
right?
and what'd you say?
I said who isn't.
Yeah, she's
She's
cool.
great.
Yeah, she is really great. And she also has a very no BS approach to fitness. And so connecting with you and being able to talk about that is really cool, because that's such a divergence from what we typically see on Instagram with,
Oh,
like
it's
booty
tough out there.
shorts and, people selling snake oil. And so,
It's tough, man. It's wild, and I think I've got a pretty unique perspective and experience related to that specifically, just because I did come from like the bodybuilding world. Like that's how I got my start in fitness. Essentially, like that's the stuff that caught me. I saw the, um, you know, Christian Guzman YouTube videos when I was, I don't know, early 20s, essentially, and I'm like, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to do, and that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of competing and how to put yourself out there and what fitness meant, right? Like to me that was the introduction of it, and it's unfortunate. I think that I came out on the other end lucky because now I'm at the place that I'm at, but I feel like so many people never escape that because of the nature that social media, like the way that it works, especially now, right, with it being algorithm based. We're just fed the same thing over and over and over again. So once it kind of registers like, oh, this is what you want to see, oh, this is what you bought into, this is what you will literally buy into and pay money for, you're just seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's almost impossible to get exposure to other viewpoints, other perspectives, other mindsets. And so once you have that kind of visualization of what fitness means to you, it's hard to break through that. So I'm really happy, and I feel lucky that I came out on the other side being like, you know what, it's really not all about having 5% body fat all the time. It's not having the six pack or the abs or anything really. Like I think that those things can certainly improve your life, and I don't think I would have gotten to the place that I'm at now if I didn't go through that. But clearly I'm at a place now where like I just don't care as much anymore, and I'm happier for that. And that's really kind of what my message, I try to make it anyway, is that like, these things are great, and I obviously as a coach I help people work through these things and make these changes to their life, but the whole point is to make your life better, right? It's not like to look a certain way, weigh a certain amount. It's like, no, I want to live a good life, right?
yeah, and um I like that you balance that in your messaging of like, because it's an and a lot of people think that that my body isn't tied to my self-worth. That's totally a thing. And also there is a certain level of body fat or performance or, health looks a certain way. And so it's like we have to dance between both, because some people will be like, oh, all body shapes could be healthy. And it's like, the truth is like, no, like at a certain point, we're just carrying around too much body fat, or we're not doing enough, cardio work. Our heart isn't healthy. And that's just like objective. But also
Right.
you don't have to be ripped, jacked to say that you're healthy.
Right. And same, like literally, you can make the exact same points on that other end of the spectrum too, right? Like being too lean is unhealthy.
Yes.
Being eating too little is unhealthy. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we really want to find that sweet spot, that middle of the road. And physically, that's the easiest place to live in, I think, because like you're more comfortable with your energy levels, your sleep, like that's the place where your body thrives. But clearly it's the toughest mentally, right? Because there are so many people on the like extreme end or the other, like I need to be super lean or I don't care at all. And I'll just eat whatever and never exercise. And it's like there's a pretty big dichotomy there.
So going back to, your journey, was there a moment where that clicked for you?
So I put, this might actually not even be great to put out there, because it came from a place where competing. I realized, well, maybe it is. Maybe this is actually good for people to hear. Like I had some success, right? Like I turned pro in a couple of natural federations and did some pro shows and won a handful of them, right? So I had this kind of external validation of like, oh wow, I am good at this, or oh wow, people appreciate or like view that I am worthy in that sense. But then at the other side of the coin, I also competed in some of those pro shows and got last, right? And realized that like, oh wow, there's always somebody bigger, leaner, better than I am. And having to face that and realizing that like that really doesn't mean any, like that doesn't make me any less just because somebody is better. I think that really was what was a turning point for me, to be able to see that objectivity, that like I can still be here, somebody else being here doesn't make me like, doesn't bring me down at all. It's just like, yeah, that's the way the world works. Like in anything, any, like in life, people are going to be faster, smarter, have more money. Like always somebody will be above you, but that doesn't change where you're at. So I think it was actually losing, you know what I mean? Facing it like, wow, I am not number one at this. That's okay.
Yeah, I just had a similar conversation with a couple different friends about CrossFit. So I've been doing CrossFit for like 10 years now. And uh people think like, "Oh, you've been doing CrossFit 10 years, you must be amazing at CrossFit."
Right. You got to be the
And I'm
best.
like, "Yeah, yeah, exactly." And I was like, if you compare me to like other people who've been doing CrossFit, it's like pretty unspectacular. I could do some party tricks. There are some things that, I'm pretty decent at because I've been doing this for a while, but I have no delusions about, my fitness compared to, the global CrossFitters. But I also acknowledge that if I go into the grocery store, I'm probably the fittest person walking around at that grocery store right now. And neither of I can both like look at myself and be realistic for where I'm at comparatively, and also confident and comfortable and proud of where I'm at, because neither of those again are attached to my value of myself and my fitness.
Yeah, and it's tough to have that objectivity. I think it became like a trend not too long ago that was like, if you can bench one plate or and squat two plates, deadlift three plates, or something like that, which are like, if you're a power lifter or who somebody's been lifting for 10 years, like you look at those numbers and you're like, yeah, that doesn't mean all that much. Like that's not really impressive by any stretch of the imagination. But the end of that is kind of like you're in the 99th percentile of like everybody on earth. We don't look at it that way, right? Like we think about, oh, that dude in the gym is bigger than I am. Oh, they're lifting
Yeah,
more than I am
totally.
or
I mean, if you
whatever.
can
And it's so easy to just make
if
that
you can
comparison. So
deadlift your body weight, you can lift way more than 90% of the
right,
planet.
yeah, almost everybody, right? And nobody thinks about it that way
Yeah, and in
until
reality,
you're
it's
like
not that like
presented.
and yeah, and if reality, if you do any amount of training, like deadlifting your body weight is not a big deal if you've been doing this even for a year. Like unless you're starting real low, most people can get to deadlifting their body weight fairly quickly.
Yeah. So
So
it's
how
it's
did
tough.
y- yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say that's just another reason why social media makes it so hard, because you're just the things that get shown and pushed out there are the like the outliers, the people who are the freaks, the numbers that are like, holy heck, that person just pulled 1,000 pounds off the ground. That's not the type of person you compare yourself to.
Yeah, those things are cool for like inspiration to get started, and they're cool for knowing what the human body in a grander sense is capable of. Um, that does not represent what your human body is capable of.
Right.
Nor does that represent your work or your goals. Like you just haven't been doing that, and you don't see the you know, 10, 20 years of grind that it took that person to do that flashy thing on Instagram for 10 seconds. All you
Right,
see
for
is the
the
10
5
seconds.
second clip. Yep, it's true.
So how did you what brought you into coaching?
So, funny enough, my actual background has nothing to do with health and fitness. I went to school for actuarial science. So, I'm a big like numbers guy, analytical thinking, data, statistical modeling, stuff like that. But I very quickly realized that, after a couple years out of college, a couple jobs in the insurance field, a couple jobs in the consulting field, I was like, I can't sit behind a computer screen and crunch numbers and run these reports all day long for like the next 30, 40 years, right? And that's what kind of led me down that rabbit hole. Like I said, YouTube, Christian Guzman, like these people, I was like, all right, that's what I want to do. I competed first before I ever did anything. And that kind of brought me to that place where I was like, at a, hitting walls in my life in terms of like what I wanted to do, find my purpose. And I ended up quitting my job, just straight up was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And from there, that's when I was like, all right, I got to support myself, started bartending, serving, waiting tables. And during that time, got certified as a personal trainer. So it was really just a way of like, I got to do something. I know that I'm passionate about, working out and fitness at that point. So it started on the gym floor, building up kind of just like a one-on-one clients, in person training clientele. 2020 happened, right? So I had a couple online clients at that point, people from the gym that I had worked with in person. I was like, all right, I'll just do your program. You can do it on your own. You don't need me to be in the gym with you. Then everything shut down. And that's when I kind of got really lucky. This is why social media can be really awesome because I had some, people that I knew in the industry. I met Joelle, who's the owner of Level 10, and saw that she was like hiring coaches, reached out to her, and then just kind of fell into it at that point because of the need. 2020 shut everything down. And I think that's when online coaching kind of really boomed or started to anyway.
Dude, that's super cool. There's a lot to unpack there. One, we haven't had a ton of conversation like offline. Uh, but your story is very much parallel to mine. So I went to school to be a high school math teacher. I
Okay,
taught
another math
high
guy.
school. Yeah, yeah. So I taught high school math for 2 years. Same thing. I was like, this isn't for me. Having anxiety, mental health, all associated with that, and did the same thing. I quit, and there was like 2 to 2.5 years where I did things like I bartended. I worked at a refinery. I did some contractor work while I was trying to coach on the side. And
And let me ask you
until I
this,
had an
since you did that
opportunity.
during that time period, because I think this is a good thing to like talk about, just people need to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when you quit your job, it was a scary thing because you're like, well, I'm making money steadily with a salaried position. Now I'm doing these things where I'm working for tips, I'm working hourly or whatever. I personally took a huge pay cut, took a huge risk doing that.
Yeah.
And my mental health went from here to here, even though I was making significantly less money, right? Like that was one of those things where I was like, I would rather go and work 12-hour shifts or, bartend until 3 in the morning and not have that pressure of like, I got to wake up and go back to the office every single day. It like was everything to me. That was the first time I was like, there's more to life than just like these material things than money. Looking at that was like the opener to me. I'm like, wow, I can make as long as I have enough to live. Obviously, I'm good, but I don't need to make the salary trajectory 401k. I don't need that. You know what I mean? So I'm curious if you felt that same way during that period before you figured it out.
Oh, dude, when I had decided to quit, so for me, because I was teaching a school year, I wasn't going to quit in the middle, so I gave them a heads up, and when I finally told them that I was going to quit, it was just a huge sense of relief, and my mindset. There was a big jump in improvement, and then it gradually improved over time, and I totally agree that it was freeing to know that I was living closer to what I was destined for and what it is alignment with me. And with that being said, there were a lot of different mindset struggles along the way because I had to, one, I had to reframe in my mind my self worth because like when you get paid hourly and consistently, it's different than when you are an entrepreneur, which is really what coaches are. Even if you don't own your own business, like you're selling a service. And so it's very much uh my income is very similar to what it was when I was bartending. Like, it goes up when you work, and sometimes
Right,
there's a little bit of,
fluctuates.
yeah, it
Yeah.
fluctuates. And so that was a both a skill and a mindset that I had to learn to wrap my mind around, that I didn't realize was preparing me to eventually open my own gym, where now I'm dealing with like bigger dollar amounts, but I developed that mindset to be able to handle that.
Yeah, it's almost like a poise that you have to have, right? Because I've dealt with anxiety my entire life, and I am very blessed in the position that I'm at right now. Like I do really well for myself, relatively speaking, like in my mind, like I am good with the amount of money that I make, but it is still different. Like I do always still go back to that first word, like every single month when I was at that job, I'm getting the same exact paychecks. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's based off of the industry fluctuations. I don't know if you know how many like one-on-one clients that you have, but it's funny how it works where it's like you might get 10 people that sign up all at once and you're like, this month was awesome. And then 6 months later you're like, well, I just had six people cancel in the same month or end their program in the same month, and it's like, okay, that was a low month. It is something to get used to, right? You have to shift and be like, that doesn't mean I'm a worse coach. That doesn't mean I need to like freak out. And just like when we talk to people about like their fitness, if you don't get stronger week to week, if you don't see the scale going down week to week, take a step back, take a breath, assess what's been going on, over time, analyze some trends, then make an objective decision. It's tough to have that kind of like that poise. I think is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I like that word. It is. And it's interesting because unlike working for, a company like that, like a normal job, so to speak, a lot of times in our industry, you get paid up front. Somebody's
Right.
buying
Yep.
personal training
That's
packages.
different too.
Right. It's like I may make $500 to $1,000 right now, and I haven't done anything yet. And so
And
now
then you're
I'm just,
working while not getting paid, which is a weird concept too that still takes a while to get used to.
yeah, yeah. And you do have to, you have to reframe it, because it's not like I'm clocking in to make $30 for this hour. It's like I already got paid for this hour. Now I'm delivering on the service, and then knowing like, how do I budget this money? Because it's not like I got $500 and now I can just go blow it. It's like, no, like this has to last, and I have to budget it out, because next month it might not be, I might not make in as many sales. And so I have to spread that out across
Yeah.
time.
All the contractors out there that do like construction work and run their own business, they're like, yeah, obviously, guys, like I've been doing this my entire life, but it's just like it's new. Once you're a salaried position, and that's what everybody, at least I don't know if it is so much anymore today, but when I was growing up, it was like that's what you need to do. Like that is the right way. You are doing something wrong. You're looked at differently if you don't go to the traditional, get good grades, go get a college degree, find that job afterwards, right? And now my one of my things that like has been in my mind as I get older, like my future family, my future children, I'm gonna be like, if you want to do that, absolutely fine, great, I support you. If you don't, you will make that work too, and I've shown that you can, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, it's still like that. I have I've had conversations with people who are in their like early 20s that are going through what I went through, 5, 6 years ago. And they're saying the same things, is like, my parents suggested I go to school and I get this job. And now I want to do this thing that's different and scary. And their response is like, well, what about your 401k and health insurance?
Right, as if those are don't get me wrong, that stuff's important. Like you can't dismiss that, but are we living life to have a 401k and to have health insurance? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I don't want to look back when I'm 70 years old and be like, okay, great, I have this awesome health insurance now, but did I live my life? Did I enjoy my 70 years here? So I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever turn around. I don't know if that way of thinking will ever shift or change. Maybe. I think Gen Z, one of the good things that they have going for them is that they do view things that way, and they're kind of like, if I don't want to do something, I'm not I'm not doing it, which can be looked at as a positive or negative, but maybe that's the shift that we need.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not to like devalue those things. I had a conversation with my dad. I was talking to him about my wife still works full time at a hospital, and so our goal with our business is to bring her down to part time and then have her completely in the business. And my dad's first response was, "What about health insurance?" And I was like, "Dad, what about health insurance? Like, there's other business owners out there who have health insurance that don't work for somebody else. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just have to figure out what it is. Like, what about health insurance?"
Right. Why is that the I mean, you can get it. You know, do people realize that? Like, you can just not walk in. It's not like a brick and mortar, but like you can go in and just buy health insurance. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have a job to get it. But yeah, that's the immediate thing. Like, that's the trigger. Oh, what about your retirement plan? What about your benefits? It's like, what about your life and your happiness and your mental health? You know?
Yeah, it's weird because they think it's or. They think, oh, I need a good job, or I can do this like foo pursue my passion. Um, And it's like you could do both. I can say I'm still preparing for my retirement. I still have health insurance. Like, but I also do this thing that I love and enjoy life. And I wake up excited to get up in the morning. And my wife and I say all the time, every single week, we look around and just think to ourselves, we love our life. Like we love the life that God has provided for us and all of our blessings, and that us trusting his process to end up here is so much greater than when I tried to do it on my own and pursue teaching because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, you do almost have to let go, right, of what you think is the way, the plan, and just sometimes it is just have faith, whether it be in God, whether it be in yourself. You know, sometimes I feel like people lack that too. Like they know that they want to do something. If we're talking about a career switch or not, like anything in life, it's like there's that desire, there's that draw to you want to do that, but there's that internal. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I can make it work. Like you definitely aren't if you don't try. You know what I mean? It'll never happen if you don't go for it. And I think people just have to have that faith, like let go and then go, right? Go do it. You'll never know if you don't.
That's totally on par. I mean, I like to say work and pray. You
Yeah, that's
gotta
a
you
good
gotta
one too.
put boots on the ground. You gotta do the thing, but you also have to have faith in, like you said, in yourself, in the process, whether that's in God. Like you have to put some trust that like this is gonna work out over time while you put this work in. But if you only work, it's not gonna pan out. And then if you're just always just like praying, hey God, send me an itinerary, an itinerary and a menu, and then and a map, and then I'll I'll
Yeah.
act. It's like we're not gonna get that either.
If only if it was that easy. If the signs that we got were literally the roadmap, like do this, this, and this. It's like no, it's not outlined for you ever. But I think that that's a nice comparison to like we're talking about health and fitness in the same light here. It's like that's the way you have to think about things in terms of your goals, right? Like you have to act and be consistent and work hard, but there's also that kind of like you have to just be patient sometimes and trust in the process. I don't love that phrase because some people overuse it and just kind of, give horrible advice and just say, no, just trust the process. But when you're doing things the right way, a lot of the times a big component that people overlook is time of just doing those things over and over and over again. And so you really are like, yeah, you're working hard, you're putting in that effort, but you also just have to take a step back, trust in that process and let it work. Let the results come to you sometimes.
Yeah, I like framing it. When you said that, I'm thinking I want to trust my process and I want to be patient. And and trust the fundamentals. If you're trusting your process, you're trusting the fundamentals, and you're being patient. That's what trust the process means. But you're right, there are a lot of people out there who are trying to sell you something, and they're like, oh,
Right.
just trust the process. And it's like, no, that's not, you're taking that out of context.
Yeah, so sometimes I'm like, that's a horrible saying, horrible phrase. But again, if it's applied correctly, it's like, yeah, really, like the basic, simple things over time, being patient. If that's what you're trusting into, then trust it. That's what works.
Yeah, how do you have conversations like that with your fitness clients when it comes to um especially when they're struggling? A lot of things you talk about is like the scale. So how do you help them when they're trying to trust the process, but they stepped on the scale or something happened and they're just like, dude, like I've been doing this for a few months and I'm not, I don't feel like I'm seeing
Right.
it.
I'm not there yet. So I try and get ahead of those things. I think one of the things that I do really well is set the expectation appropriately before we ever start doing anything. Like that initial conversation that I have with clients, I think is monumental in terms of how things are going to kick off and get started and how you're going to end up working through those struggles that will essentially come and ultimately come. Like you will never avoid them. There's going to be that day where you wake up and you're like, I don't like the way that I look today, or that like, wow, my scale weight's up 3 pounds for no reason, and you feel like garbage because of it, right? But if you already have that mindset of like, I'm expecting to be around this point, or I'm expecting to see these things, this is intentional what we're doing right now, so that 3 weeks down the road or 3 months down the road, we're then in a different position or different place. And we almost have to do that with a lot of, at least with the people that I work with, a good chunk of the people are looking for weight loss or body recomposition in some capacity, right? They want to lose some body fat. Unfortunately, those people have also been trying to achieve that for a very long time, like years and years and years. And so there's some habits that need deconstructed. There's some behaviors that are like not really in alignment with the goal that they want. There's like um, this delayed gratification that we have to start to work in. And so my initial conversation with them a lot of the times is, look, I know that you want to get to here, like this long-term end point, this end goal, but that's not a month down the road like you want it to be. That is maybe a year down the road. For the first month, this is what we're doing. We're laying the groundwork. We're redefining what your habits and behaviors are going to look like that set you up for success. And when somebody buys into that, I think that's when it's easier to be like a month in, they see the scale hasn't gone down. And it's still tough, don't get me wrong, but it's not an immediate, something's going wrong, this isn't working, I'm firing you as a coach, or like we need to do something different. It's really like a, oh, I can see that my scale weight hasn't gone down, but I'm sleeping 2 more hours every single night. My stress is so much lower. I'm actually going to the bathroom consistently now. Like you can't acknowledge those things if you're only ever thinking about the scale or something else constantly. So reframing what our expectations are and like the map and the outline of how we're going to get there from day one, to me, that's the biggest thing. And if you miss that as a coach, you're doing yourself and your clients a disservice.
Yeah, I love that. I At my gym, we talk about surprise PRs. And so what we do is we do the same thing. Like we focus on how many times a week you come into the gym. How are we picking appropriate weights and appropriate distances to make sure we're fitting within the parameters of this workout. What's our sleep and nutrition look like? And we're focusing on that so that when something happens in the gym and we have the opportunity to deadlift again, all of a sudden you surprised yourself with this PR because of all the work that we put in, instead of every time you pick up that bar looking and hoping and expecting the PR and being disappointed.
Yeah, that is trusting the process and letting the results come to you, right? Like in perfect application.
Yeah, and that is such an alignment too with, and that's why I'm passionate about this, because there's such a parallel between health, fitness, and entrepreneurship, pursuing your passion, is that we do trust that process, and that when you have that posture, you actually have a sort of magnetism, and you're like attracted to abundance, opposed to when you're searching and reaching, you're everything's just gonna like lose out of your grasp.
Yeah, there's parallels everywhere. You know what I mean? Like again, it's whole that whole like letting go and letting things come to you. It's just it's all connected, and it makes you kind of go back and think like we can get into like all kinds of philosophy about like the world and like our purpose here and whatnot. But truly, you can have that same mindset and perspective about every facet of your life. It is cool.
Hey, if you made it this far into the episode, I just want to say thanks for checking it out. If you're digging it, then please leave me a 5-star review on Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. You already got the app open, so real quick, just make that happen. That will let me know that you're digging it and help me reach even more people. So I appreciate it, and let's get back to the episode. I heard somebody say once that they weren't actually talking about this, but the metaphor holds, is chasing results and PRs is like you're trying to grab it, and it's like you have like a handful of like putty, and it's like the harder you squeeze, the more it like
Mm,
seeps out of
that's a
your
good one.
hand. But if I have my hand open, it sits there and it stays, and I can actually put more on it because my hand is open.
Yeah, I don't know why, but when you're describing that, like that makes perfect sense to me. Do you have a dog?
Yeah, I do.
So I have a golden retriever, and like I've actually never had him do this, but I see the videos all the time of like you put an egg in a golden retriever's mouth and they're always so gentle with it. And it's that same concept, right? If you just like chomp down and grab something hard, like you're smashing that egg. But if you just, cradle it in your mouth, be gentle. And I've seen, golden retrievers that can fit like 12 different tennis balls in their mouth at once. That's the way to go about it. Really, let the stuff come to you. Be gentle with it.
Yeah, that's super cool. We talk about at my gym the difference between like trusting that process um and trusting the results. And a lot of times I'm trying to, when we get new people, I'm trying to gauge whether they're going to align with that or not. Because when they come in and they're just like, I just want to lift heavy, I just want to do this. But if they instead come in, they might have a similar goal of like, yeah, I want to get stronger. Basically, their goal is I want better performance, but they say things like, I want to live a better life. Like I want to feel better. I want to do these things. Then we can take those same goals that they're approaching that we may measure in the gym, but remind them of how that may or may not transfer outside of the gym and keep them focused on like what the real goal is, because ultimately like this health and fitness stuff is the fitness stuff is only as cool as it transfers outside into life.
Yeah, and I think that that's the main marker of a good coach, to be quite honest with you, is being able to do that for both kinds of people, because it's the same thing on my side of the coin with nutrition clients. I'll have the people who on that first call immediately, like I know right away this is going to be easy for me as a coach, because they're already bought into like I don't care so much about what the scale says. Like I just want to improve my endurance a little bit. I want to be healthier. This is about longevity. And I'm like, okay, great, you've already done the hard work. But then there's the people who not only on that first call, but like weeks and weeks and weeks into our coaching, every week it's like, but I'm not at 140 pounds yet, but I have only lost 1 pound. And like, that's the conversation that's happening like over and over and over again. And as a coach, it is our job to kind of say like, look, this is why that is concerning. This is why we have to start to look at things a different way, reframe our perspectives, because it's not just about that number. Or, dive into what is it about that number? Why is there such a connection and such an association with that and your happiness and your value and your definition of success, right? So as a coach, we have to be able to work with both people. And one obviously is a little bit less effort, but to me, when you see somebody who is in that latter category, the one you can tell that's like, this is going to take a long time. This is going to take a lot of me repeating the same things over and over again. If it takes 6 months, if it takes a year, once you get that message from that client that's like, hey, my scale was up, but like I had a great weekend. I went and enjoyed it. I didn't think about food. I spent time with my family, so and so. You're like, yes, like we were now we're winning. And that's the most rewarding thing to me as a coach, when you can start to see that change.
Yeah, and being able to connect with them as a person, right? And figure out it's not just like, no, don't worry about the skills, fine. Don't worry about just trust the process. But it's different to be like what is it about that number? And a lot of times they associate that number with a time where they were happier with their
Yep.
body or their selves, their self-esteem, the way they felt. And it takes that education and that nurturing of getting them to realize that that was a different body and you're a different person. You have a different body and you may be training different, you may be living different, you're older than you were then. You may
Right. You
have a
have
different
kids now.
lifestyle. Yeah, and knowing that like that number, again, like we said at the beginning, isn't tied to your self-worth. And that number, that body you picture in your mind might not actually weigh that number.
Yep, that's a big one, that you're really wanting a look or a feel. It's not the number that you actually want. It's either that, or going back to what you said about like them thinking about a different time in their life when they did weigh that amount or when they were at that number. A lot of the times through that conversation, because that is what we're doing, right? We're asking questions, we're getting feedback. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's talk about that. What we sometimes come to find, and this is super unfortunate, but the realization of this for people is powerful, right? Is that they think back to and actually start to, dissect what their life was like during that time. And then they start to realize, you know what? I had a horrible relationship with food. You know what? I had horrible energy. You know what? I didn't do anything social because all I was worried about was what my scale was going to do and what how my body would look. And so I was actually a miserable person and I would never want to go back to that time in my life. I want to hit that number, or at least I thought I did, but I actually don't want to be that person anymore. And then we can start to talk about, oh, okay, so this isn't really what you want. What you want's over here, right? So it is. It's you don't get there by saying trust the process. You don't get there by just saying, eat this amount of food or go do these workouts. This is the answer. No, like the work that has to be done is let's think through this. Let's talk through this. And that's tough because not everybody is open and receptive to open conversation. So again, that's the skill of a coach is being able to connect with all different types of people because you are working with people and it's a different, even though you're talking about the same thing, it's a different conversation with a different tone like with every person that you're talking about. So you have to kind of like you got to be able to do it all. It's a tough job, but that's
It
why it's
is.
rewarding.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's, I find too in conversations that rarely, but it does happen where after going through this stuff, people realize like they just aren't ready.
Yeah,
They
that's a good point.
they bump into that mindset where they realize like, oh, I need to pull away, do something less psychologically taxing so I can work on this psychological hurdle, and then I may come back to body recomposition, or or CrossFit or whatever it is. That just doing this act is too much psychologically while I'm trying to deal with this baggage that I didn't realize I have to get over first.
Yeah, we that happens a lot in my experience with level 10. Again, with the clientele that we work with, a lot of people are in similar stages of their life. And that happens a lot where we'll go through a period where, okay, we are improving some habits. A lot of the times it's we're getting people to eat more as opposed to trying to be super restrictive all the time. And then they get to this point where coming to us, they were like, I want to cut, I want to cut, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. And we go 3 months, 4 months, 6 months of can we eat a little bit more food? Can we go through this like look let's figure out what maintenance actually looks like for you. And once they get to that point where they're like, "Oh, you know what? You're right." Or, "You know what? I am happier here," or "This feels better." We then say, "Maintain for a while on your own. See if you can do this on your own. Let's talk again in 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Maybe we can go into a deficit at that point in time." Because you have to really learn that maintenance period essentially should be what the majority of your life looks like. And yeah, you should take that time to go and actually digest that and see if you can do it on your own before you try and shift something, do something different, reduce your calories, try and bump up your training frequency or whatever it may be.
Yeah, because you can. I mean, assuming you're done with having a drastic weight loss journey, it's totally normal to get to a spot where you're just like, I just don't lose weight anymore. Like, I'm just pretty much going to hang out at this weight, until either I die or my lifestyle just like totally changes and, my goals completely change. But uh, I think a lot of people had that misconception of like thinking people are always trying to like gain or lose weight. And it's like, no, it's actually the opposite. Most of the time, we should just be hanging out.
Right. But again, people don't see that because that's so boring to say. That is so not flashy. You can't just put that post on social media and expect anybody to see it. That message is like nobody cares. All that the people want to consume is get really big, get really jacked, and so you're going up, or get really lean, get really shredded, lose a lot of weight, so you're going down. That in between time gets no love, right? But that's life. You live life in that in between zone, which is it's just wild.
And tying it both to health and fitness and business is making sure, and we've danced around this a little bit, is making sure that you have different KPIs, different key performance indicators, other than just weight loss, or even going back to coaching, other than just, sales this month, that there are other things that we can look at that are indicators that we're on the right path. And like you said, that can be things like tracking your habits. Did you crush your habits this month? Cool. Maybe we didn't see a ton of noticeable progress, but that is a psychological progress, and those are consistent deposits in the bank account that eventually we're going to be able to withdraw from. And the same thing, with business is like maybe you got 10 sales last month, but this month you improved your systems or you got super consistent with your schedule, and you might not
Mhm.
see the benefits of that now, But as the months go by, you're going to be really stoked that you have that system when all of a sudden you have double the amount of sales that you normally have. And you can rely on that, basically, that time investment.
Yeah, I think it's tough, but very important to have your KPIs be, or at least some of them be, things that are intangible, if that's a word, or just not tangible, right? So you're talking about things like subjective ratings of stress, like how my quality of sleep, quality of life, even, right? So those things are hard, like, 'cause it's not a scale number you can look at, or it's not like a number of pounds that you're lifting, so it's not a concrete, tangible thing. But if those things are improving when those others are not, like you said, that is setting you up for success. For now, you're in a better position to go achieve those things in the future. And from a business standpoint, like you said, improving your systems, improving like your work life balance, the efficiency of how you get through your day. Like, yeah, you may not be making more money that month, but you might be a better coach of you're running your business more smoothly so that, hey, when you're getting more leads or more sales, now you can actually handle them that next month because you're more efficient. And so those intangible markers of progression, you have to like lean into those and give them the value that they're worth, because they are very, very valuable.
Yeah. And even with coaching, you may lose a client that reduces your stress a ton. And it's like on paper, you may be like, oh, I lost money. It's like, yeah, I'm glad. I'm
Yeah,
good.
but
This wasn't
my
working out.
mind,
Yeah.
yeah, people don't talk about that too. I mean, we've kind of skipped around that a little bit, in that like this what we do is we're working with people, right? Not everybody gets along, and so I try and make it so that I say that on my initial call with people is I'm just trying to get a feel for, would it make sense for us to work together? Like, are we a good fit? And most of the times that that checks off all the boxes that you need. But sometimes you do find that, like, hey, a couple weeks in or whatever, there is just, we're not jiving, we're not connecting, and whether that leads to like immediate separation, or however many months down the road once the programming or relationship ends. Yeah, sometimes it's like that's for the best for both parties, and there's nothing wrong with that. That can be looked at as a positive thing too.
Yeah, it doesn't make me a bad coach. It doesn't make you a bad client. Like, just for whatever reason, like, we're just not connecting. Uh, and I try to do that a lot with my gym, and I try to be super open with that when people come in and they're checking us out and seeing, and I tell them that, like, hey, I just want to see, like, do you like the vibe? Do you like the vibe of the gym? Are you connecting with me? Because if you're not, then this isn't going to be fun for you. It's not going to be fun for me. And there's other places that I would be happy to refer you to if this doesn't connect with you. Now, if it does connect with you, I would love to have you come in. You're going to have a great experience. I'm going to have a great experience. We're all going to level up together, but we're going to need to make sure that we are sharing wavelengths at some level before we dive into the deep stuff.
Yeah, and that may make you, and I do the same thing. That may make us not poor, but like that may limit us in terms of the amount of sales that we can bring in. Like, I've never considered myself a salesperson ever. I never wanted a sales job. I think that I'm a good coach. Even still, don't consider myself a salesperson. But like you said, in this business, that's what you are doing. You are selling a service, but you are essentially the service, right? And so that may not be the way to get the most numbers, to get the most revenue or the most clients coming in, but it's to get the most fruitful and actual beneficial for both parties if you do are just open and honest up front to say, if this doesn't work for you or for me, it doesn't work for us. Go our separate ways. Like, I'll refer you to somebody else. They'll be better for you. Everybody's better off.
Yeah, and those same intangibles are the reason that people find themselves, are a big reason why people find themselves unhappy with their life, with their careers, where they live, maybe with their family, because they're caught up in the measurables and they're not giving those intangibles the credit that they're due. When I was teaching, I was reading a book, and there was an exercise in the book that made a huge difference for me, and it was energy bars. And so, what you did is, I think I did it for a week. Every time you would do anything, you would write down that task, what you give it a little label, and then you would measure what your energy was after the task. And so then at the end of the week, you would look at all these tasks and see which ones had a low bar after doing the task and which ones had a high bar after doing the task. And I realized that teaching, the act, like a lot of me teaching lowered my energy bar, or I should say being at the school doing things like that, Actually being up at the board and educating filled my energy bar, but so much of the rest of it did not. And then I found that, coaching and doing CrossFit like totally like exceeded, filled the bar up. And I would not have realized that had I not looked at those intangibles. If I had only looked at like, oh, this is a cake schedule. I'm making decent money. I can have good retirement. I can have summers off. Like, but I'm miserable and this isn't filling up my emotional energy.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of what I try and like. Obviously, half of my messaging on my social media page and the persona that I put out there is, I'm the coach, right? I'm the health and fitness coach. We're talking nutrition, we're talking dieting and training, but the other half of that truly is like take audit of what's going on in your life. Are you doing things just because you think that you should, because the measurables and the tangibles are showing you that like it's the right thing, or is it actually fulfilling you? Are you actually, drawn to that because it's your purpose, because it brings you, a reward that you actually value? So I really like that of just taking that audit and finding the things in your life that are draining your energy. And if you can, get rid of them. And I, I say this to a lot of my clients because obviously stress management's a thing that we talk about frequently. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to just go quit your job. Like we need to work to make money to support ourselves. We have to make a living, but that should be on your radar. Like if you're realizing that every day I'm like drained, 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 take a step back and think, well, how are you going to feel 10 years from now, 20 years from now? If there's a way to make that better, or at least set yourself up so that you're working towards making that better, finding a way to get to something else, that's more important to me as your coach than giving you the right set of macros, than giving you the right workout program or plan to adhere to. Because if you don't improve the other areas of your life, you're never going to actually hit the macros. You're never actually going to get those workouts done anyway. So that's the stuff that really, really matters. So getting people to realize that, see that, and then put their effort towards that, because we know people are willing to work hard. You've got people coming into your gym that will say, I want to work out 7 days a week, 2 hours a day, right? Like people want to work hard. It's really about where are you directing that energy? Where is your time and focus going? Because if you put it in the right places, you're going to be really, really well off. If you put them into places with really low return, you're going to be spinning your wheels and just not going very far. And that's a tough way to live. That's why so many people feel burnt out.
Yeah, and especially men. I see a lot of this in fitness in general, especially in CrossFit. A lot of men will try to outwork their demons in the gym, and you will never outwork your demons in the gym. You'll put yourself in the ground doing that.
It's tough too because I mean, I'm not sure the demographic that you work with that you see that happening. I'm assuming it's kind of like middle age to older men that have that mindset or persona.
Yeah. So my demographic is 30s to like late 50s, 60s is the
50.
majority of the people that I work with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately it's the same for the younger generation too. Like the things that I see on social media that become trendy now, it is usually the younger kids, and it's obviously my social media page is geared towards like I see the gym content, right? But all of it is kind of like this: oh, your girl broke up with you, go kill yourself in the gym. Oh, your life is hard, go kill yourself in the gym. And it's like, no, like I love using gym as a way to improve your life again, but as people say, like gym and working out is not therapy. Like it's not the way to change your life. It changed mine in a roundabout way because of where I'm at now, but that's not the way to, fix your problems. Again, that's putting effort into something that's going to be very low yield or at least a very short-term change. You got to face those demons first or face those issues first if you actually want to work through them. So I don't know, hopefully somebody hears that and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you know what? I say it as a joke or like it's funny and it's trendy, but that actually is me. Like I'm actually avoiding these things. I'm actually not happy and I'm hiding that or masking it by going to the gym or working hard in some way. It's like the hard work is truly facing those issues and facing those struggles.
Yeah, a lot of people and listen to David Goggins. I like David Goggins, but if you only take David Goggins at surface level, you think, "Oh, I had a shit day. Guess I'm going to go run 3 hours." Like that's not going to solve the problem of the day. If it's a stress relief, awesome. But if you're just constantly trying to outrun your demons, you're going to find yourself hurt. And if you look at David Goggins physically, he's very and listen to him, he's very open about how he has hurt himself doing these things and how he doesn't ever suggest somebody do what he does, and that he's doing it for him, not for you.
Yeah. The gym culture people, if you like the bodybuilders, the world that I come in, my David Goggins is like Ronnie Coleman, right?
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if you
Yep.
like have seen him recently, but yeah, everybody is like, dude was freaky strong, dude was massive and had a crazy work ethic. Yeah, sure, but look at him now. You know what I mean? Like that takes a toll on your body. He can barely walk. He's in pain all the time. It's like I think it's getting more and more popular these days to talk about recovery and stress management and like balancing these things. And I'm all for having grit and work ethic and like go get what you want, no excuses type of mentality. But at the same time, make sure that that effort is going to places that are actually going to yield you the results that you want.
Yeah, because if not, like we had been talking about, is like you may reach that physical goal, but at what cost?
Yeah. And then what? What about what's next? What's the next day? What's the next 10 years look like? Right. Because we got to live the rest of our life. You know, that's what this is about, living a long, healthy, fruitful life.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's why I like following. I love Ronnie Coleman stuff, but I find even more inspiration from people like Stan Efferding. Are you familiar with him?
Hmm. That's
Yes.
the rhino, right?
Yeah, that's the Rhino. He does
That,
he does the
yeah,
vertical diet,
yeah,
but he's like in his I think he's in his 60s now, and the dude is all about health and fitness, and he's deadlifting like he deadlifts a shit ton. I think he
right. He's
deadlifts like
strong.
600-700 pounds. Like he's a monster, and he's like totally open about his health markers. He's totally open about like his mindset about how he feels, and he's found that balance of like high performance for him and having a healthy, fulfilling lifestyle. And that's what I hope to communicate with people that I work with in health and fitness is that we can have both.
Yeah, that's the goal. We just gotta keep putting it out there. And as much as I complain about like that stuff doesn't get seen, social media is tough because of the algorithm and whatnot. Like somebody's listening, somebody's gonna see that message, somebody's gonna hear that message, and our reason for doing this is always that one person, right? If we can positively impact somebody's life, their choices, then nothing else really matters. It is about the one, not the many or the masses.
That's cool, dude. But that's an awesome place to wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to share, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I think we covered a good bit. Now we could obviously talk forever about stuff like this, but if you want to hear more, you know, I talk about this stuff, post about it on my Instagram page. That's really the only social media outlet that I am active on. So it's just at Coach John Knoll. And then I am obviously, like I said, or like we've talked about, affiliated and work with Level 10 Coaching. So we have an Instagram page there at Level 10 Coaching. But yeah, Instagram is kind of like the main place. You can always find me there.
Cool, John. Thank you. I appreciate it. I had a really good
Yeah,
time.
thank you for having me. Yeah, me as well.
I love that we exist in different sects of fitness, but there's so much commonality, and with especially bodybuilding type and CrossFit type, there's a lot of like butting heads. And the more that we sit down and have conversations like this, the more that we realize like we're all basically
Not
doing
so
the same
different.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not so different at all.
cool. Well, thank you, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you didn't already, like, subscribe on the YouTube channel. That lets me know you're digging it. But even more importantly, let me know what your big takeaway was. If you made it this far, that means you got something out of it. So send me a DM or drop in the comments what your big takeaway was. And if your big takeaway was you're ready to be an action taker, you're ready to lean into your passion and unveil what living authentically to you, living authentically to what God has aligned for you, then book a one on one discovery call with me to where we can figure out and unveil what those obstacles are preventing you from living that life and provide some direction, some space, and some clarity to moving your life in that direction. So if that sounds like you, click the link in the show notes to book that discovery call so that we can connect. And until next time, thanks for listening.